So even though Mary's birthday is not today, okay, so I had a reason for getting it mixed up. The reason was that I was talking to Biff about coming on and doing the virtual tour. And for him, it is Mary's birthday. Because
Ah,
he was saying he finished it today because he was celebrating Mary's birthday at Meherazad. So I was like, oh, it's Mary's birthday, even though for us it's not Mary's birthday yet. But we're gonna do it a day early. We're gonna kick it off, especially for you guys on the East Coast. It's like nearly 12. Well, if we talk for 2 hours, it'll be 12.
and
Um,
it's her birthday in India.
Right.
yeah, exactly. Thank you,
She is.
Diane. Thank you.
Mhm.
I feel
And,
validated.
and we know people that live in India.
There we go. Yeah. Well, I just thought I was kind of thinking more of an open share tonight, not really like any structure to it, but sharing either poetry, songs for Mara to entertain Mara, or also stories or experiences that you have of her. And this doesn't have to be if you met her in the body. Of course, if you met her in the body, we'd love to hear those stories. But I think that sometimes, like in these spaces, there's a feeling of like, oh, I can't say anything because I didn't meet Mara. But I think many of us have an internal experience with her that is just as profound as maybe me. Well, I shouldn't say that, but I know I had a really profound experience with Mara, and I never met her in the body. So yeah, I just want to open that up to everyone. Um, People are a little gun shy. I have something I can read. Um, but okay, looks like we are a little gun shy today.
Well, I'd love to hear your experience with her with a not in the body. We will hear that, I guess.
My marriage experience is pretty intense.
Okay.
I'm happy to share it. It's pretty intense. Well, I had a pretty tumultuous relationship with Mara most of my life, to be honest. I did not like her at all. I hated her. I was just like, I don't understand why this person exists. And I'm just being candid. I like remember growing up, we had the Mara book, you know, the one it's like the green with her face on it. It says Mara. We had it sitting on our coffee table, and I just would get so angry as a little kid looking at Mara's face, and I didn't know why. It just wasn't. I never had that experience with Baba. Baba was always like, thought he was so beautiful. Yeah, sure. Maybe I wasn't exactly sure if he was who he said he was, but I knew I really liked him. Mara, not so much. And this went on all through my teens and up until this year, or no, last year in November. Didn't want to look at a picture of her. It was like annoying to me, especially, you know, spending so much time with Jeff. Jeff would always encourage me to talk to Mara and Baba. And I would just be like, can he just stop saying that? Because I don't want anyone to know how much I'll say it. I really hated Mara until my trip to India in November of 2022. Yeah, so about a little over a year ago. So before I went to India, about a week before, I don't normally work with psychics. It's not something like I look for, but randomly it kind of aligned, and this woman did like an inner child healing. I was doing a lot of like inner work, kind of unpacking some really deep childhood trauma stuff, and it just came at the right time. It was about a week and a half before I went to India. So it started that she had me doing this basically like childhood regression thing, and I was looking into the eyes of my inner child, and in the eyes of my inner child I saw Mara. And when I looked into her eyes, I was so confused because she had me visualizing and I was verbalizing what I was experiencing, and I said, it's Mara. And like there was no part of me that was like, oh my god, it makes sense. Like, I'm not going to tell you it was some great. I was just like, what the, excuse my French, but what the fuck? Like, why? And I actually said out loud for the first time in my life, I said, it's Mara. Why is she there? I hate her. And what this woman was a Bob lover. Sorry, I have a little space heater on that's hot. And what this woman said to me, and she said, yeah, of course you hate her. You hate yourself. And I mean, immediately I just like broke
Can you
down. But
repeat what you just said?
I told you.
You hate your effing self?
You hate yourself. And I wasn't ready to integrate that. I was kind of like, okay, I don't know what to do with that. Like, yeah, I kind of know that already, but thanks for confirming it. It wasn't like, it was a profound experience, but it wasn't a transformative experience by any means. So I went to India, and I will say, like, if you're watching this recording on YouTube, and for anybody here, like, this is a bit of a trigger warning. But I had a really traumatic childhood experience happen to me when I was probably 3 or 4. And I didn't remember it until about a month before that trip to India. So it was a very intense part of my life. I didn't remember it until my ex-boyfriend at the time, he woke me up on the couch and I started screaming, and I remembered it all. It all came back to me. And a lot of the stuff that I've gone through in my life, I've been able to say, like, okay, Baba, like, cool, I get it. Like, this is hard, I understand. But that one, I just was having this feeling of like, this was like, there was no point to it. Why did something like that have to happen? It was like, it was just a horrible, it felt like something, what it felt like to me was this like horrible attack on the feminine that I was like, I just was boggled by. And I don't know if I was mad at Baba. I was more just like, why? Like, what was the point of this? And so I went to India, and I was really holding that. And I was a mess. It was a trip that I brought Izzy. So it was really beautiful what Baba did. When I was with Izzy, I felt like I was like high on cloud 9. I was able to entertain her, take her all around India. But then the second, like, if Izzy went to bed early, it was like hysterical sobbing and hyperventilating and screaming. And anyway, so that was going on. So one day Izzy decided to take a nap in the afternoon, and I walked down to the samadhi. And I don't really like sitting on the samadhi, on the stone. I prefer to sit in Baba's cabin. So I was sitting in Baba's cabin, and I actually had my scarf like in my mouth, because I was just kind of like reliving this experience and just screaming. And I mean, I was trying not to scream, but it was kind of that like wailing sound, and just going like, Baba, why? And so I'm sitting in the cabin, and this is what's happening. I'm shaking. It's very emotionally intense. And Arti started. And so now I was completely alone in Baba's cabin, because I stayed seated during Arti. And in this time, I had this inner vision of Baba. And he was the one doing this thing to me when I was a little girl. And Baba had tears. Sorry. And Baba had tears just streaming down his eyes. And that just sent me into like more of a rage, because I didn't understand. I was just like, if you're crying, Baba, why did you do this? Why did you allow this to happen? And then all of a sudden, I saw Mehera. And it was in like the scene that Mehera appeared to me in was just this like cloud of kind of pink, almost like ocean waves in the background, like so peaceful and calm and elegant and powerful. That was the thing, is I never viewed Mehera as powerful. But it was powerful. And I looked at her sort of in desperation, because I felt like abandoned by Baba. Like, if Baba's crying, I'm on my own here. I might as well reach out to Mehera. And so I said, Mehera, why is Baba doing this? And she just said, she said to me, she said, because I asked him to. And suddenly I understood like everything. And there was like more that she conveyed to me inwardly. Like, those were the words that she said, but I understood everything, where basically this was a dance that I had been in with my dad for lifetimes of being like, I kind of saw it all play out. And just like, you know, being abused by him and being in this dynamic. And the message that I got was that something had to happen that was so traumatic that it would wake me up. And Baba didn't want to like do something that painful at such a young age, but it was something that Mehera like knew that I would be able to go through and would completely free me from that dynamic. And that has been my, and now Mehera and I are pretty tight. Yeah, so that's my Mehera story.
Wow. Mhm.
Can I open it up for anyone else to share? I just thought Tony laughed.
You are incredibly strong, Margie. My goodness.
Oh, thank you.
Ooh.
Thank you. All right, let's go to Josh.
Yeah. I have a funny story. I back in 2016, when I was at Meherazad, I met a cool lady called Sophie Savage. She was a best-selling author who wrote a book called The Cancer Whisperer, which was about her very late stage metastatic cancer, and you know, how she was sort of living with this, you know, beast of a disease, you know, and how she was bringing life, joy, and happiness. And so, yeah, she's a really interesting person. I suggest reading her book. She has now since passed away, right? But that she spent ages living when the doctors just couldn't understand why she was living, you know, like she just went on and on and on. And the doctors, you know, would think the best authority on her. But yes, but I remember she had this really funny dream. So she was like, we chat in at breakfast, right? And she was telling me how she woke up with the alarm on her phone to go to Artie, the early morning Artie, you know, and she was like, "Ah, I don't want to go to that." And then so she rolled back into bed, and then she had a dream where Baba and Mehera were there, and they were going to Artie, and then and then yeah, I think I can't remember if it was Mehera who said this or Baba who said this, but then someone said, no, 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 you don't need me to take you to Artie. You're going with Barbara, you're going with Sophie today. And so then she woke up, you know. So that was like it was like and there was still time for her to go to Artie. So it was that very funny thing of she's still, you know, I still feel like they're active, you know, their spirit is still there. It's yeah, so that was just a really funny thing that came to mind. And yeah, it's on the more intellectual side, I think Mehera is a really interesting study because there's those quotes of Barbara telling people apparently that she comes back, she's the same one each time, right? Which is, if you study Barbara's cosmology, that's like, what? Why is she the same one? What is going on here? Who is she? Like, Barbara doesn't actually explain who she is, but like she's like right next to him, and it's like very weird. Okay, we don't know what's happening there. But yeah, it's you know, it's very interesting. And my current hypothesis is that so in the big Catholic tradition where they were worshipping sort of the Virgin Mary, how I guess, and it is a guess, is that they're actually sort of worshipping Mary Magdalene, right? Sort of, and it's just you know, it's just Mary Magdalene's archetype, which was, you know, because Mary Magdalene was Mary's counterpart in the Christian time. And yeah, but then it's still this very powerful thing. You look at Catholicism, and it's like this Mary person is almost like as big as God, you know. So I think it's, yeah, very interesting, very yeah, I find it very interesting. Yeah, and I've got, yeah, other things to say, but I'd love to hear what everybody else has thought and picked up about her and their kinds of experiences. But yeah, it's awesome.
Thanks, Josh. Appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I personally, again, like, who am I to say this, but I really feel after having that experience, I think that she's the same as Baba, in my opinion. Like, don't come for me when I say that, but to me, I feel Mehera is the same. She's just the feminine side. Yeah, so thanks for sharing that. Let's go to Diane and Terry.
First of all, sharing the way you just did to this group and knowing that it was being recorded, I'm just humbled by you putting it out there, because it allows us all to think more deeply, and it's going to be a slow hit, I know, for me. But one of the things I remember you saying and Jeff saying is that your trips to India this year, you both really felt Mara's presence. And so my question to you on this one is, when you had this experience with Mara saying she was the one who told Baba to do this, you had some healing with her, if I remember, while you were there. Am I right?
Yeah, very much
I'm
so.
feeling pretty ripped open right now. So can we talk about the healing part right now?
Yeah, part of the healing was that in that experience, like, what I understood is that Mara loves me so deeply that she was even willing to forego essentially my connection to her. That was how I experienced, like, felt it, is that she asked Baba to do something that she knew would make me hate her on some level, or have this experience of not coming to her. But it was like she wanted to keep, because Baba was my lifeline throughout my youth and what I had to go through. If I didn't have Baba, I'd probably be schizophrenic or something. But I didn't have, Mara was never there. And so what I felt was that Mara's love was so pure that she was willing to forego any nice feelings from me for essentially, 24, 25 years, until I finally understood the loving act she'd done. And then it really cleared. I mean, it's taken some time to kind of build that same familiarity that I have with Baba, because Baba's like, I mean, I talked like, if somebody in the outside world like does something that annoys me, I'll just be like, Baba, why do you do that in other people? Like, I mean, Baba and I have a real, like, he's always with me. But Mara, I do feel the same now. And so the healing was pretty instant in that experience, or on that trip, I guess. But the familiarity of having her with me all the time, that's come and takes practice, and remembering her and thinking of her. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you for asking.
Thank you.
Let's go to Anthony. Hi, Anthony. It's good to see you.
Hey, Margie, good to see you too, Jay Baba. Hey, thank you so much for sharing. That was, I just don't even know what to say. I'm speechless. I mean, the depth of the experiences that people have in this community and that have had, at very early ages, I don't know. I don't even know what to say, but thank you for having the courage to, to talk about that. Yeah, both you and Josh, I have two things. One, a Mara story, but first, just since you and Josh had both touched on it, and we had talked about it in our Tampa Bay group on Tuesday, of who Mara is. I mean, I don't think, I don't know. I haven't met anybody yet that clearly like has an answer to that. I mean, just with the Mandali, it's different souls, it seems like, in each avataric advent, like Peter in Jesus's advent, even though Erich plays that same role, it was a different person, so I guess different human beings have a chance to be a Mandali member. Baba is one and the same avatar that comes again and again, but who is Mehera? And yeah, thank you for clarifying, Josh. I thought I remember Jeff Wolverton saying that she's the same one that comes again and again, that it's not a different soul that gets the chance to play that role in each Advent. So even more so, I'm wondering, well, who is this? I mean, but Margie, exactly what you were saying. I've been starting to get the vibe a little bit that this is some aspect of Baba, maybe even possibly him in this form or something. I don't know. But definitely if anybody wants to chime in with any further answers to that. I guess, yeah, I guess I'll see if anybody has anything to say about that before sharing my story that happened this week, actually. So I don't know. Does
All right,
anybody
well, now we're gonna have to pivot back.
sorry, what was
We'll
that?
pivot. Since you have a story, we're gonna have to pivot back to you. But we'll go to Rich. We'll go to Rich for now. And when you're ready, put your hand up.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
Well, on that subject, I don't have enough experience personally with Mehera or Meherazad to comment much on any of that, but I was raised in the Catholic Church, and you guys are right. I mean, in the Catholic Church, Jesus and Mary were not the same at all. But the Catholics, I think, I would never clear at all on who the heck Mary was, whether it was Mary Magdalene. Mostly, most people think it's Mary the Mother. They just don't know because there's no cosmology to the Catholic Church. You know, they don't have nothing going. But I honestly don't know. Jeff is so far ahead of me in terms of who he is as a soul in relation to Meher Baba. But and I don't mean that like in a race. I just mean that he is really sensitive to some very powerful things with Baba, and I'm not that much. But I don't really feel that. It's hard for me from what I've read to see that that's the same soul that comes every time, because I just keep going back to the circle when Baba says, you know, these people are positions, you know, like the president of the United States. He's always the president, even if, you know, if it's Joe or Jim, you know, it doesn't matter. But the one thing about um, this, I too have not had much in my entire life feeling directly towards Mehera. It was always just Meher Baba. And it's only changed in the last couple of years, I think. And I began to really embrace, and I agree with you, Anthony. I can't put any kind of idea on Mehera. There's nothing I can do with that. She's just beyond that. I don't know what it is. I don't have a clue. But in terms of spirituality, the accident they had that she and Baba and Elizabeth and Monty and Mary went through in Prague, when Jeff was talking about it, especially, it was obvious that Mara took on half of Baba's suffering in that accident for America. And that's so impressive. I mean, I can't grasp that either. But I know, imagine who is Mara? If Baba, the avatar, allows her that kind of suffering, that's pretty powerful stuff. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Rich. Yeah, there is something to be said. I really feel Baba lifted Mara up in a different way in this Advent than in the past. You know, not that he didn't, I mean, I don't know, I wasn't there, but it just seems like he highlighted her just how pure she was. And also, you know, as a woman reading Mehera, for example, I have a very not great reaction to it, to say what Baba like did to, you know, did to the women and kind of kept them secluded. But I think as I've gotten older and the closer I felt in related to Mehera, I have an understanding that Baba didn't do that to say that, like, you know, women need to be protected from men. It's just that women are so pure, and that role that they play is so pure that it's almost like not worthy of being seen unless you're prepared for it, and unless you're ready to receive Mehera, you won't. I'm having trouble kind of verbalizing. but I hope that that you guys are.
One example of that, I think you're right, is when Mara got to meet Dr. Kenmore. Dr. Kenmore got to meet her, and that's because he was blind and couldn't see her. That was the only reason he was introduced to her in a personal way at that time.
Well, thank you. Let's go to Anthony again.
Yeah, one last little quick thing before sharing my story. I just wanted to note, I mean, the Bhakti traditions around the other avatars in India, Krishna, Lord Ram, I was around a lot of that culture before finding Baba. And as far as all their kirtan, their chanting, I mean, Radha, Krishna, Sita, Ram, I mean, those are so together. They're inseparable. I mean, it's Krishna is referred to in terms of Radha, and same with Ram. And, that's how a lot of the kirtans go, Sita Ram, Jai Jai, Sita Ram. So, I mean, in India, for thousands of years, the female counterpart to the avatar has been inseparable from the Advent. And so I don't know. I just wonder if like they know something a little bit more, that, they're both one and the same. And so just another interesting little thing. Anyways, so my story, I mean, it's almost kind of vulnerable to share because I don't really have experiences like this. And I was like Jeff and have had no feeling of connection to Mara at all up until this week. And yeah, I mean, there's just been no use for it. I mean, I feel whole and complete in Baba, and I don't really integrate her into my connection with Baba in any way. But I don't know, without getting too vulnerable about some stuff, just I guess whatever. Everybody in relationships and marriages has their issues that come up. I mean, of course. And just to call myself out on some things that have been like not the best on my part, I think I've been unnecessarily like projecting some of my ideals of, what the perfect partner should be like onto my partner, and it's not a healthy thing. But some of these things are so deep in me that I just can't shake them. I mean, just year after year, these things keep returning of like, oh my God, if it was like this, if it was like that. Out of nowhere, completely unexpected on Tuesday night, I had a dream with Mara in it. And I don't remember a lot of the scenery. I remember like these hazy kind of images, but as strange as it may sound, in the dream, we were both married, and that exact feeling I've always wanted in the perfect, female partner existed between us. And it was the feeling of like having arrived at that perfect place in partnership with a female. And I woke up and I was like, did that just happen? Like I felt zero connection to this person. And so I had the day off, and I ended up taking a ride out to this state park close to Gainesville in North Florida here, Paynes Prairie. And I spent like half the day in the woods there, like hiking. And I just could not believe the things that were coming into my consciousness walking around. I mean, I can't even share all of it. Some of it is just too much for me, but the essence of it felt like I was being asked to like officially verbally like ask her if she wanted to be in partnership with me. And and then the feeling would come real strong, and then walking opposite to me on the trail was this real pretty girl that had this terrible look of sadness on her face, who was alone. And she walked past me like just in that moment, and you could see that it was just like a feeling of deep loneliness that she had. And then I had asked, I said, Mara, do you want me to be in some type of relationship with you in this type of way? And at that moment, this, beautiful woodpecker with the red head swooped down right in front of my face there. And for a lot of the rest of the hike, I just kept seeing couples on the hike. And then I would see two animals together. And then, so part of this hike, you're walking on the edge of the prairie in the woods, and then you leave the woods and you come out onto the open prairies. So when I exited the woods and came out there, it was this walkway that was walking for about a mile out into the prairie, and all of the cattails and the brush and all that had grown really tall along both sides of the path. And I walked out of the woods down this path, and it had the exact feeling of like walking down the aisle. And I was like, what is happening? And I kept tearing up over and over. I mean, which kept happening the whole time on the hike. And so anyways, I don't know, some other stuff happened, but I left the woods and got back into my car to drive home and was still in tears. And it felt like the return from a wedding to go to your honeymoon. And I felt that she was with me, that there was some type of ceremonial, I don't know, I guess for lack of a better term, like spiritual marriage that had just happened. And then I started trying to ask Baba, like, well, how do I bring you into this now? Because I've always felt a partnership with you, but it's been more of like a father, best friend, Lord. And now this is a feeling of partnership, like girlfriend, wife, divine mother. Like that was the energies that were all kind of mixed in together. So, anyways, this is crazy. Like I can't even believe this stuff happened because these types of things like don't happen to me really. And oh yeah, when I woke up that morning after the dream, I looked at my phone and your email was the first email in my inbox about the group tonight, and it said, "Oh, do you want to share anything about your experiences of Mehera, like dreams?" And I was like, "Oh my God, this is not happening. This is totally crazy." So, anyways, I'm still trying to figure out what to do with this whole thing. I can't even pretend to know the significance of it yet, but I definitely feel like somebody's in my life that wasn't there before this week. So we'll see what happens with it. So there it is.
Beautiful. Wow, thank you for sharing. That's amazing. Yeah, that takes a lot of vulnerability. So I commend you, and that's that's really it's amazing. I think it's
Not as much vulnerability as yours, but at least, it was a little interesting to share.
With that, let's go over to Tony.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here. I had something I wanted to say that came to mind, but first I wanted to respond or add on to what Richie was saying about Harry Kenmore and Mehera. It's really speculation that he let Harry meet Mehera because he was blind. I just wanted to put that in because we assume that, but but the main thing I thought about that meeting that bears on what we're talking about now is that Baba asked Harry, "What did you think of Mehera? What did you get of Mehera?" And he said, "Baba, I felt she was the feminine counterpart of Baba." And Baba leaned over and gave him a kiss. Um, so anyway, as for Mehera, who Mehera is, if she's Baba, if she's one with Baba, easily. I in my years, I've been with Baba. I've been first trip to India was in '72 on Martithi. So I've met the Mandali and many times and Mehera. Uh, and sometimes Mandali passed and I may have felt it. Francis, I certainly felt close to, and Pendus, but there was never a sense of loss. There was a sense of, I'm going to miss them, or I don't know. I couldn't even put words. There was a heart reaction, but there was no sense of irreplaceable loss. They had enriched my life and they continue to. With Mehera, when she passed, it was really, I was startled by my reaction. I was in very quiet grief. And the sense was something unutterably impossible had just happened, that I could not imagine a world without Mehera in it. It was just inconceivable, and I couldn't deal with it. I couldn't work through it. I just had to put it on the shelf. It's what it took up residence in me, and it was just there. I didn't talk about it, think about it, but if I looked, there it was. And at some point, this whole story connected with it, I won't say, but I put my love life in Baba's hands. And I said, you pick her, no conditions. And then I kind of put a little condition in, but never mind that. It was sort of just an understanding. And very, well, almost immediately the phone rang, beginning a process that brought this woman at the time into my life. And it became a very intense relationship, and so intense. And I had my concerns that, Baba, maybe I should get out of this. This doesn't seem really healthy. And Baba would constantly, I would speak out loud to him, like in my car, and constantly Baba would say, love her more. And I go, okay. And then something else would happen, and I'd go, Baba, this thing, I should get out now, right? Love her more. All right. And then a dream where a steamroller was coming down the road and was about to just plow me under. And I said, Baba, and he said, love her more. And kind of suddenly, some issues had come up, but nothing extraordinary. She bolted. She bolted. And it was extremely difficult for me because of what Baba said. I assumed he wants this relationship and he wants me to love her more. And I opened up to a degree that I had never experienced before. And it actually, parts of my childhood, my father died when I was 9, and there was so much that was locked up there. So much started coming out, and I couldn't deal with it, really. I took a crisis trip to the center, and it was just after Christmas in 1993 into 94, New Year's into 94. And meanwhile, Mani in Baba House mailing list and messages that would come from India, she would sign them, love in Baba and Mehera. And I used to I so didn't like that. I thought, oh my God, this is the whole Catholic thing with the Holy Virgin Mary, and you're going to make a saint out of Mehera. Was incomparable, but really, and it was one thing after another, after another. And the climax came when I ran into David Nordine on the center, and he used to like to talk to me about Kenmore, because he's a manly man, and Kenmore was a bold, manly person, at least I think as he saw him. And this time, and he would ask me about my time with Harry Kenmore. But this time, all he could do was talk about Mehera. I thought, this is really odd. And it culminated in him saying, I go out hunting for deer. And for months now, every time there's a deer right in my, it's just a bizarre story, but it's Baba and it's David. And it was exactly what I needed to hear. He said, for months now, I go out hunting and I get a deer in my sights, and something happens, and she bolts or whatever, and I shoot and I miss her. And so the last time I was out hunting, at a certain point, I bowed my head. He said, I had no relationship with Mehera in the body. It was more like an Icelandic thing. Like, I will serve you. I'm a warrior. I will serve you. I will do anything you ask of me. But he felt no connection to Mehera. As Baba's beloved, he would do that. But in this case, he bowed his head in the forest and he said, Mehera, you are the lady of the forest. Please help me with this. And it's insanity makes it such a powerful story on a certain level, because no sooner did he say that than Bambi number 1, Bambi number 2. He got 3 deer, and I think he said, now I have a relationship with Mary. She's very present and I have a relationship. I couldn't ignore that. I mean, if you know David, it was like, so I got back home to New York and I was sitting at that piano and I sang a song. I wrote a song called You Taught Me to Let Go. Kind of came out of that relationship. I hadn't really let go at all, but there was on a certain level, I had let go of a lot. And Baba and Mara's picture was there, and I felt Mara was really enjoying it, really liked the song. And that had never happened. I don't know that I even experienced Baba in that way. And so I wrote down the words and the chords, and I sat down and I thought, all right, Baba, I give up. I give in. And I decided to talk to Mara as if she was really there. And particularly, people would say if you have a relationship issue, talk to Mara. Don't talk to Baba, talk to Mara. They used to hear that a lot in India. And so I said, so Mara, there's this and this and that. And hardly had I started when I was overcome by the awareness that Mara was here. Mara is here. Mara is present. That grief that I had because the impossibility of her being her actual presence, as I knew when I would see her in India. And I got it gradually, but I kind of got it that yes, Mara and Baba are one. I mean, but not only that she basically started giving me advice about this relationship. And I got internally, send her a dozen roses. She wanted nothing to do with me, would not take my calls, wanted not me to, but she sent her a dozen roses. And all right. And she said, and send it to her where she works. Very specific. She worked in a senior's residence. And so I did. And she had been saying to me all the time, the door is closed, the door is closed, the door is closed. I send this thing. And next night, that night, I don't know, I think it was that night. It was that night. I get a call and it's this woman. And she said, I got your flowers. She said, I was out in the back of this big building and there was an announcement, so and so, I'm being careful not to mention names, so and so come to the desk up front, the reception desk. And there was this astounding thing of roses. And all of the old women, mainly women and men, but women mainly, were like oohing and eyeing over it. And she's telling me this on the phone. He said, and one of them leaned over to her and said, hold on to him, honey. And he said, so I'm just calling to say nothing else but this, but the door is open. Like, we don't know where it's going to go, but the door is open. Now, as it turned out, it was not meant to be. And that was not the woman Baba had picked for me. That was the one who was going to clean out my clock so much that I could love and be in relationship. And that I met Zeke 4 years later, 3 years later, 4. But that what I maintained and still have is that Mara is here. And I do talk to Mara and talk to Baba, depending on what's the mood or what the thing is at the moment. I pretty much always take Mara's name when I take Baba's name. So I'll say Avatar Mara, Meher Baba Ki Jai, or I'll say Mara, Meher Baba Ki Jai. She is my very breath with whom I could not live. You can't be more, he couldn't be more blunt and direct about it. So, and that has been my experience. And I've got lots of other Mehera stories, but I thought that was the one that kind of fits this subject tonight. And I had to write everything down. I had general anesthesia for something today, and my brain is not not functioning properly, but I managed to write everything down. So Jai Baba and Mehera.
Jay Bob, Mara. I'm glad you were able to pull your brain together enough to get that story out. So it was worth it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, can we
Anyway.
catch Jeff up on, hi Jeff.
Hi, Jeff.
We were talking about how you
Hello,
felt
Jeff.
more of a presence of Mehera when you went to India this past year.
Yeah,
I invite you to share.
okay.
How's that for mitzvah?
Um, no, this was the time, not this last trip to India, but the one before. Before I left, um, I had this kind of a dream vision in which I found well, I should say that, all the way back to the early 70s, I spent a lot of time with Mara. And for some reason, they thought I was, being a caretaker, they thought I did construction work and all of that. So I wound up doing all these jobs around the main house, around where Mara and Monty and them stayed. So I got to be around them a lot. And I mean, I never met anyone like Mara. She was a different, kind of came from heaven down. There was not, the, I describe her as like a building with windows all around, and if you entered that building, you could go from one side of the building to the other, and you would never run into a single wall. There was no vortex. It was like a blue sky for interior. Anyway, so I always Audie back in the 70s said that Baba had told him that Mara's always the same one, meaning that she was Mary, whichever one, we don't know which one, Radha, Sita, uh, uh, whatever the counterpart. And Mara herself said that she's always with Baba each time he comes, which is the other Mandali, once they get realized, they're out of the game, but Mara never gets out of this game, you might say. She is eternally stuck. So anyway, before about 3 weeks before I went to India, I had this kind of dream vision in which I found myself in this interior space with Mara. I was standing off the side, and about 15 feet away, Mara was sitting on this bench with something on her lap, like a photo album or something that she was very enthusiastic about. And so she motions for me to come over. This is in this experience. So I go and I come around the front of the bench, and the bench is so narrow that there's only about this much room between me and her. Now, we were, always said not to touch Mara, but Mara's kind of very enthusiastic, and she's showing me these photographs and everything. And the whole time I'm trying to avoid her movement. She's like very cavalier, and she's moving toward me, and I've spent the whole time trying to avoid touching her. And then at one point, I feel this tap on my shoulder. I'm thinking, oh my God, we've touched, Baba, we're not supposed to, men aren't supposed to touch. But then I thought, oh, well, no, she touched me. So I felt better about that. And then she goes on showing more things. I'm half aware of what she's doing and half aware, half focused on avoiding being touched. And then at one point she comes around and she touches my heart, and I wake up. And I'm thinking, wow, what was that? And it was so real. And so anyway, 3 weeks later, I find I'm on the plane going to India. And I've been over 50 times to India. And I always have Baba with me, kind of before me as I go on this trip and everything. But I get in my seat and everything, and Baba and Mara are both in front of the eye of my heart, because I always put her in a special place, but I never put them together in the same focus. I mean, there they were. So the whole time I was in India, I was just, Baba and Mara were there. And even to this day, it's Baba and Mehera that I call it the path of Baba and Mehera. That's my path. But she, I mean, so loving, and when she appeared, it opened up the much more profoundly my feminine side, a whole different side of me more deeply. But I do feel, I mean, some people, I mean, I don't know how I got on this, but I do feel like she was very sweet and loving toward me, and late in my life, she uh, has shown up. But I do feel like she is eternally here, the way Baba is, you know. And that, yeah, like Tony said, sometimes if you you want a softer version of Baba, you turn to Mehera. I mean, she uh, she. I mean, I'm not saying that Baba's not empathetic, but Mehera is so caring of everything in a very feminine way. And but the beautiful thing about Mehera is, someone said that, Mehera did not want anybody worshiping her. Her whole thing is focusing on Baba. This Baba was everything to her. So when I see her, I see her focused on Baba, not, you know, not looking at me. I see that she is aware of Baba at all times. That's my impression. Anyway, but yeah. Was that all right?
Thank you, Jeff. That was perfect.
No, she is,
Thank you, Jeff.
yeah. You can add her to your inner devotion, and you won't be led astray. It only amplify your inner life. That's what I'm saying. But yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
Jeff, do you have any, even if it's just throwing something out there, do you have any hunch as to who this is what we were talking about a little bit earlier. Do you have any hunch as to who you think she might be? Do you think she might be Baba in another form, or another form of Baba, or something else? The other things I was thinking the other day, is that she could possibly be another soul, like us, but like the Mandali, but that kind of doesn't sit well with me. It seems like she's got to be something else. And then I was thinking what Baba said, like about the archangels, how they were created, that there were like these sparks that came off of God that are super evolved, that have just never taken physical form. And then I think they have one incarnation and then they're liberated. So I was sitting there thinking, like, wow, look at that. There's these other types of beings out there that are different than souls like us, like the way the
Yeah.
archangels were made. So do you think she's like another form of Baba, or is she some type of like archangel thing, or is she's just some special
I
type of
think
being?
I think she's just the feminine avatar. The feminine side, there's I mean, is divided up because we think in terms of he and she and you and me and everything. This united love is there. We can see it as two, which is our language. But I would say that they are one and the same. Um, they're both eternally here. When I go to bed at night, I say, well, Baba and Mehera, I get to go to sleep, and I know you have to stay up all night, night after night after night, eternally. I mean, there's a quote from Baba that's in the book. This took place in in Guru Prasad, where Baba said, and you probably heard this. Baba says of his experience, the same theater, the same show, the same actors, 24 hours a day eternally. And I have not only to stay awake, but smile and clap. So that's, he, he never gets a day off. And I don't think Mara ever gets a day off. But
Did
it was
you ever hear somebody said earlier that go when you're having relationship issues, Mara's the dear Abby here. More than
Yeah.
Baba, turn it over to Mara more than Baba. Because he's been kind of slow to respond to me lately. So I'm wondering if
we cover all the bases. No, I just feel like they are so for us. They are so, they're supporting us with all of their love and waiting for us to kind of turn in their direction. Um, but they're, yeah.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah.
It's always appreciated. Thank you. Let's go to Betty.
Yeah, I have to say, I don't usually come at night. But I thought, well, I did meet her, and I thought all of you guys were young. I thought it was all young folks. And I thought, well, probably most people haven't even met her, so I should probably share, but not the case. And certainly, my God, Marty, Margie, y- your experience is so, so intense. Obvious, obviously she had, and Tony too. Josh, yeah, you guys certainly have. I see she comes to you. Wow, I'm impressed. Um, uh, Jeff, I know what you said, she's 100%. That's focused on Baba. That was my sense. This woman,
Yeah.
there's nobody. Well, it's not to say there's nobody there. She's very human and laughs at, jokes, and it's not that she's otherworldly, but her entire being was attuned to, she to telling stories about Baba, to encouraging us and to love him, and she'd go around, she'd every picture she'd have to kiss and just love him. That was she was just 100% his. um she I have two Mara stories, and they're the same stories, but you can't make up a story. You just have to. The one that so was real important to me was I was there with my family for the first time, and we were on the porch, and she uh, um she was just getting it straight who was there. It was just my there were three kids on the porch, and one of whom was actually a foster. He was a half brother to complicated. He wasn't mine, but biological son. So when she came a time when she was, I said, this is, anyway, I introduced my daughter, who was 7, and and his name is Gary, and I said he's my stepson. I didn't figure foster was gonna make any sense to her, so I said he's my stepson, and she looked at me and she said, "You must never say it that way." She said, "He's your son," and then she turned to him uh, and said, so Gary, who is this?" And he was kind of spacing out. And he said, "Oh, that's my mom." And he wasn't kind of half paying attention. And that was priceless. And he's so true. He's we have a really deep connection. He's a wonderful kid. and it just really helped me to just learn that never did it. I have the stepkids, and I just don't make any distinction anymore. They're all just my kids. Um, so, and then,
Beautiful.
yeah, that was, and then there was another time where, where I really blew it actually. The, um, uh, it was a time when the Mandali were, it was, the women were coming for, when they come to for Archie, they came, I guess, twice a month. Is that right? I didn't get how important that was. I mean, and my kids were, they had been there for 6 weeks and they were getting pretty tired. You know, Gary said, I'm going to go bow down to a Big Mac. He said, and they were just getting tired of, of going to Artie and doing all the things that you're supposed to do. And so they were grousing and they didn't want to go up to Artie with, so I gave in. I said, all right, you don't have to go. So big mistake. And it was the ladies, and I didn't realize how important that was. So Mary didn't say anything at the time, but the next time I was on the porch, she said, "So Sarah, where were you? Where were the kids?" And I didn't have an answer. She graciously stepped in, and she was talking about Shireen a little bit. Oh, she said she was probably having a bath. And she was making an excuse for me. uh-huh. So yeah, I felt pretty badly about that. I have a good memory and a not so good memory. But I will absolutely say that there was that 100% focus. There was no, she didn't space out. She didn't, there was no, she just, no wandering in her mind. She was just there for Baba. That's all, 100%. So anyway, thanks. Great.
No, just to say, she was so unself-important. She was the beloved of the beloved, and Baba said, "Without, she is my very breath, without which I cannot live." But Heather Nadell, who was just here, a couple months ago, she said she was walking with Mehera one time, and Mehera said, "Do you think I'll be born into a Baba family in my next life?" And Heather said, "I don't think you have to worry about that, Mehera." And Mehera said, "I asked Goa the same thing this morning. She said the same thing." I mean, what I mean is like, wow, there was just not, I mean, she could have like been really proud of being the beloved of the beloved. She just was not self-important at all. She had the greatest role, you might say, and yet so unassuming. Yeah, she didn't. Yeah, I was. Anyway,
Yeah, amazing. Wow. Well, Betty, thank you so much for sharing. Your story is really beautiful. I appreciate hearing it. Let's go over to Tony.
This again, I took my notes, so I remember. There but where do I begin? Okay, first off, this has no bearing on your experience with Mehera and the context of your childhood. But some time back, I was thinking about, things that would come up in my childhood between my mother and I, and points of conflict, or some things that I got really upset about, and I didn't think it was fair, whatever it was. And it occurred to me, what if Mehera had been my mother? And it's a wild out there thing to even think, but it landed for me. And I shared it on a Baba group on Facebook. And because like how Mehera would have responded differently to a situation being all love. And anyway, I put that on that Baba group, and one guy got so mad, and he considered it blasphemy. The but yeah, well, that's so. So the thing is, though, yeah, the only other note I didn't say, Baba and Mehera, I think, are the same, but they're also playing different roles. The same one playing different roles, and a variety of different roles. So that was one possible role. I could see Baba as father and Mehera as mother. And yeah, how different my life would have been, and how different I can be now with that awareness. Anyway, maybe it
Yeah.
wasn't.
Yeah. Thank you, Tony. I think that's great that you imagine Mara as your mother. I think that's where our biggest healing comes from. When we get our birth parents out of the way and we take on Baba and Mara, that's when we're done. Not done like with like God
Hooked.
realized, but we're done with that crap that we brought in. Okay, let's go to Josh.
Yes, I realized I had to say another thing about Mera because Margie sent me a message about drinking straight from the bottle. And this is a water bottle. This is a wine bottle that I've repurposed as a water bottle. So I have to, for the record, say that so that I don't become this historical figure of the drunken man, Josh. But one of the interesting things I liked about Mera is that someone told me was that, and again, check your sources. I'm like a Wikipedia article, right? So a lot of my stuff is pretty good, but like always check your sources. But yeah, apparently she was really into meat, and so like the purest soul of the universe. I think about that when I feel a bit guilty about having a chicken sandwich. I think about the purest soul in the universe eating a lot of meat. And then also I've heard people say that, getting Baba to eat some meat at the end of his life so that his health was better during those difficult years. And so, yeah, that's just another fun factoid tidbit that I wanted to put into my recollection, And also, what did Wendy say? What did Wendy say? I think she said also that it was not just meat, but things like eyeballs and offal and things, which is cool in my eyes, no pun intended. But yes, thank you, everybody.
Something about
Mara liked
maybe Jeff
hard-boiled eggs.
Mara liked eggs.
Hard-boiled eggs. A
This
form
is
of
a story, Jeff, maybe you can confirm it, but like when my dad would tell me stories about the Mandalay and stuff, he would tell me that when they came to the US, Mara and the women Mandalay were really excited to try American hamburgers. And Bob at one point I don't want to, I'm like, I don't want that to be a childhood story that I was told and that I'm putting on YouTube as fact. But if someone can confirm that or deny it, I'd appreciate it.
I know I vaguely heard that, like they want to try a hot dog or something like that, or a hamburger, but I can't.
No, they were in a restaurant somewhere, I think on that trip, and Baba just says, eat whatever you want. And they looked at each other, something like that. And it's like, and I think they had a hamburger, I think. I can't, that's what they taught.
I vaguely recall that.
Yeah, something like that. Okay, let's go here. Oh, go ahead. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. Jai Baba, everyone. So everyone's stories are so profound. Margi, I was really moved with your experience. And of course, I heard Anthony's earlier this week also. So amazing how she comes to you in different ways. But I'm one of those who was fortunate enough to meet her in person. And this was like, oh my gosh, it seems like a lifetime ago now, but it was 1965 and I was 11 years old. And we were in Guru Prasad. We had gone for the Eastern Darshan when Baba had called us in May of 65. And I'd met him once before at the East-West gathering in 62. So, but at this time, after we had Baba's Darshan in the little room in Guru Prasad, the side room, he told us women from our Karachi group to go and meet with the ladies. And the ladies' mandli was sitting out on the veranda at that time. So we all went there and we were with Mehera and Mani and all the women mandli that were there. And Mehera, of course, always liked to be entertained. So at one point she looked at me and she said, would you sing a song for me? Now, I was extremely shy at that time. I was painfully shy as a child. So I was like, okay, what do I do? In my mind, I'm thinking, how do I do this? And at the same token, of course, I had to please Mehera, but I couldn't think of a song and nothing would come to my head. I was like, what do I sing? What do I sing? And finally, this last song that we learned in school, which was one of the Negro spirituals, very a very well-known one, Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. We had just learned that in school. And so that's what I sang. And I just belted out the first 2 bars of that song, and that was it. And she was pleased. She was very pleased with the song. So that was one experience with her. And then years later, when I went back with my own children in I had one at the time, and I was pregnant with my second. This was 1983. And I was about 5 or 6 months pregnant at the time. So at one point we were sitting on the porch, all of us in Meherazad. And then at one point we get up and she holds my hand and she takes me inside. And, she's holding my hand, we go inside and there's a picture of Baba in the living room there. So she puts her one hand on my belly and then she looks up at Baba's picture and she talks to Baba. And I couldn't hear what she was saying, but she definitely was talking to him. And then she, bows her head and then that was it. So I just felt very, very special at the time. I felt very blessed. And the end of that story was that when I had my son, he did many times come to a point, very precarious point in life where we were really scared and that things would, not turn out well. To give you one example, he at one point sleepwalked in the middle of the night and he was outside and not everybody was asleep in the house. And all of a sudden he was downstairs under my bedroom window. And I just heard, Mom, Mom, and I woke up from my sleep. Now the pool was right there. We had just finished reconstructing our home and we had added a pool in the backyard and he was so close to that pool. I mean, anything could have happened, but I woke up and we found him over there and brought him back inside. That was one close call. And then of course, he had another couple of other very serious health issues that happened to him. But each time I felt that it was Mehera's touch that provided that her, whatever she had prayed to Baba definitely had reached. And this was Baba's blessing through her that my son had. So very, very blessed about that. So Jai Baba.
Yeah.
The stories.
Thank you for sharing, Meher. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. I love hearing your stories and you tell them so beautifully.
Thank you. Today he's a father of 2 boys himself. So yeah.
After that.
Yeah.
Let's go to Marion.
Okay. Thank you. I have a small this story to tell. I haven't really ever shared it. I appreciate everyone's. And the time that I met Mehera, the only times I met Mehera, was the 1969 Darshan. And we had a lot of, during the time, we each had our like 11 days or whatever, is that we had quite a few, they separate the men and the women. So we'd have, not in everything, I only mean when we had our special time, because Mehera always also met with the men, and greeted them, but also we women would gather in a room with her. And there weren't, tremendous amount of us. And so it was I didn't document all of this, so I don't remember what we talked about, what we asked her, but it was always about, I guess I always compared her with Mani, who Mani was the more outer one, doing a lot of organizing and everything, and who I felt, a little more westernized. And so, but Mehera, it was not easy to describe just being with her, because I found how I got very quiet and still with her. When we all were in at Guru Prasad and bowed to Baba's chair, and everybody who went up to it would end up weeping and then go out on the porch of Guru Prasad. We were all weeping and weeping. And Mani walked around between us, and her looking into me was so amazing. And so it wasn't that same kind of experience with Mehera, where I would just find myself very, very quiet with her. So I don't have a lot to say about that because we talked with her. I knew that as years went on, I would read different things about who she is, what she is, and all that. And it all seems very natural that she's one with Baba. And so then a friend of mine who couldn't go to the 69 Darshan, he went I think that November over to India. I was there in June. And so in talking to Mehera, she remembered me, and it was so sweet. And so she gave him a little plastic box that has Baba's picture in it with a lock of Baba's hair to give to me. So I still have that in a precious place of a lock of Baba's hair, and that she sent that to me as my precious gift from her. Thank you. So I'll end it with that.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, well, thank you. Hi, Emmy. Let's go to Emmy.
Hi. I am so touched by this conversation, and ever since first learning about Meher Baba, every time I saw a picture of Baba and Mehera, that was the one that I was drawn to more than any of them. And it was so the synchronicity of what Anthony shared. Before he told me any of that same day. So he wound up telling me that very late at night, even though he had woken up and had the dream and all that happened. He didn't tell me throughout the day. But what happened to me that day is that that same exact day, is I went into this beautiful woods near our house. And there's this tree that I love there. And this tree is in the shape of a woman. And I always am like, oh, it's the woman tree. It's the woman tree. But then this day I realized that it's the divine feminine tree. And so I came home and I told Anthony, he still had not told me about his dream. And I was like, Anthony, the woman tree is actually the divine feminine tree. That's what this tree is that I'm always loving so much. And then Pam Rubenstein has this song about Baba that says, the divine beloved's always with me, in me, and around me. The divine beloved is always with me, in me, and around me. And so I started singing, the divine feminine is always with me, in me, and around me. The divine feminine is always with me, in me, and around me. And I was singing this song. And I told him, and then when I got home from the woods and I was singing the song, and I realized that I got this email from Margi that, oh my God, this Thursday we're going to be talking about Mehera. And it was just, I don't know, it felt like just a really beautiful serendipity. So I wanted to share that. And I have this song that Pam sang for us on Tuesday night there's a recording of it, and I'll share it.
Purest soul in the whole wide universe, in your heart you always kept him first. Hide yourself away from every other man. You are the world turning in his hand. Mehera, you loved him as he should be loved, his happiness you were always thinking of. You made him gifts with flowers and his fingernails adorning him, as love alone prevails. Love alone prevails, as love alone prevails. his body dropped. It seemed as if the world would stop. You sought his face in every solitary place. And then one day you looked outside your room to see that magically his face was there upon your tree. Simple flower, the fairest of the fair you are. Gentle power, the rarest of the rare you are. You showed us how to love him more and more and more. Mehera, your love we most adore. It's your love we most adore. Purest soul in the whole wide universe. In your heart, you always kept him first. Hide yourself away from every other man. You are the world turning in his hand, turning in his hand, turning in his hand.
That was beautiful, Emmy. Thank you.
Wonderful.
I love Pam.
I know, she's wonderful. That was so special. Thank you.
Yeah, beautiful.
Lovely.
Thank you for sharing your story too. I don't want that to get eclipsed because I mean your story is incredible. And I think it's beautiful that it lines up with Anthony's perfectly. There's no coincidences with the avatar. Okay, let's go to Rich.
It suddenly occurred to me how I began feeling a little closer to Mara a couple years ago. But I read the book The Blue Bus Tours, and because it's really about the women, and the men are mentioned here and there, of course, doing a lot of things that had to get done for them to travel and whatnot, and for Bobby to do his must work, but with overwhelmingly just a story about the ordeal that all those women went through and how Baba worked through the women in that journey. And then, of course, you move on to the new life. And then I mentioned, Mara's only visit to America, where, she had the accident, with Baba. And, but so I started reading Mary Magdalene, and I think I'm almost done with volume 2. And in reading that, I seem to get a lot more out of the other women being around Mara, not quite as much from Mara in reading that book, but it still reminds me of what they went through in Baba's ashram. I mean, they were, everything they did, almost their breathing, had to be devoted to whatever Baba wanted and thinking of him and all this stuff. But that all of that combined pushes me further towards understanding how Baba worked through all of these women that were so very close to him. I mean, it's really significant. I think a lot, and I'm pretty intellectual on this, a lot of this stuff, but I don't know what to say about you know, I still feel blank kind of on what Mara's spiritual, the love role that you're all talking about, because it's very significant. And yeah, makes me much more curious. But this might be priming my pump, you know, a little bit. Thanks.
Rich. I appreciate you. Thank you. Let's go to Jill.
So I wasn't going to say anything, but everybody's stories have wakened up so many memories. I've just because I first went to India in 74 and I had several long pilgrimages while Mehera was there. And so I'm not going to tell stories. I just wanted to share a thought that listening to everybody has put in my mind because the drama of the first story, of course, had me in tears. And it just reminded me of how Baba said that to please Mehera is to please him. And that through all these stories, I hear that theme. I know that for me, from when I first came to Baba, Mehera was there, and the effort to please her before I'd even met her, so that when I met her, I could bear to be around her because I was scared, was always a part of the journey and a very difficult, challenging part, full of efforts and discipline. And I just wanted, and also grief. Being with Mehera, I always felt her grief for Baba, and it was relaxing because I couldn't, with nobody in the world, you can't relax with people's grief. We don't know how to. But with Mehera, all the grief I'd been through could just relax, not with tears or showing it, because one always tried to stay cheerful, but yet it was oddly relaxing. So that's on Saturday, or is it tomorrow? No, Saturday. I do want to share an experience that has to do with what's going on today, of something that Mehera, a very powerful, most powerful experience of anything I'd ever had with her. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you so much for sharing. And we look forward to hearing what you're going to share on Saturday.
Your story had me in tears, so I just loved it.
You know, actually, something that you said, I had a dream of Mehera, my last trip to India. So I was in January, February of this year, so 2023. And something, you know, what you said, Jill, about relaxing when Mehera is around, this dream sort of helped me to do that, because I had this feeling that I couldn't ever have bad thoughts if I was thinking about Mehera, like, because Mehera was so pure that if I had any thoughts, like, I was displeasing Baba. So I had this dream where Mehera was sitting on the side of my bed, you know, kind of like a mom would, you know, to kind of sing your kid to sleep. And I have my head laying next to Mehera's thigh. And I'm like, first really happy, and Mehera's kind of there. She's stroking my head, like singing me to sleep. And then I start having every single one of the most awful thoughts that you would never want to have in the presence of the purest soul in the universe. And I couldn't stop it. And so I push Mehera away, and I'm like digging my head into the bed, like trying to have her not look at me. Like, I don't want to, I'm just like trying to get away from her as much as I can. And in this dream, Mehera picks up my head and puts it in her lap and holds me so close and just sings to me and strokes me until I fall asleep, like strokes my head until I fall asleep in my dream. And that, to me, kind of speaking to what you said, Jill, a little bit different, you know, the grief is different, but that this notion, and so this is something Jeff has said too, this notion that Mehera is like so pure that you can't be yourself, like you're not pure enough for Mehera, is it really removed, that dream removed so much of it, because I was like, wow, Mehera doesn't even care about that. Mehera is so pure that that stuff is irrelevant to her. She just washes it all away.
Well said.
Well, thank you. Does anybody else have anything that they want to say before we close up for the night? Jeff, you're muted. I see your lips moving, but there's no sound coming out.
This is a song that it's an Eva Cassidy song that I changed the words to make it into a song of Mehera singing to Baba. And the early part of this song, I've sung this before, the early verses are of those days in the early 20s when there was just the women mandali, maybe 4 or 5 of them at Meherazad. Baba was still on silence, and there was no electricity. That they could only, see by the light of fire or lanterns. And the last verse is Mehera after 1969, kind of at Meherazad. So I'm going to give it a try here. It's a little hot out of my range, but I'm going to go for it. Evenings in autumn, the glowing fire lights up your face in orange and gold. I see your sweet smile shine through the darkness. Its lines are etched in my memory. So I know you by. So I know you by heart. Mornings in springtime, sharing love's secrets. We'd walk until the morning was gone. We were like sweethearts, laughing for hours. The love you gave me lives on and on. 'Cause I know you. I still hear your voice on cool monsoon days, whispering like the wind. Ooh, ooh. You left in winter, the leaves were turning. I gazed on sunsets of orange and gold. I see your sweet smile. I hear you singing. You're still here beside me every day. 'Cause I know you by heart. 'Cause I know you by heart. I should have put on should have put on the whatever the music.
Original sound.
Yeah, did it not come out so good?
It dropped out all of the background music, and it was like an a cappella concert. It was
Your
beautiful.
voice was
Yeah.
beautiful.
A
Yeah,
It
cappella.
was beautiful.
Oh
beautiful.
my God. Sorry about that, folks.
No, it was absolutely beautiful.
I was going to jump in and tell you, and it just sounded so good. I said, leave it alone.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you
Yeah,
so
it
much,
was
Jeff.
beautiful.
Or you know what you could do to make up for your terrible mistake is you could put original sound on and sing it again.
No, it's late for these people. Look at, they're barely alive. They're on speed right now.
Jeff. Well, with that, in the spirit of Mehera and Jeff's colorful joke, we'll close the night up. Okay, let's have a moment of silence. And then we'll do 3 Avatar Mere Baba Ki Jays. Beloved Avatar, Meher Baba
Baba
Ki
Ki
Jai.
Jai.
Avatar,
Avatar,
Meher Baba
Baba
Ki Jai.
Ki
Avatar, Meher Baba Ki Jai.
Birthday, Mehera! Woo!
Happy birthday, Mehera.
Birthday. That's right.
Real quickly, I have a quick question. This isn't her real birthday. Baba changed it, right?
Okay, so just so you guys know, I'm now an expert in this because I was doing a project for the social media, so I had to call like a million
Thank you.
people to figure out what
What's the
the deal is.
answer?
So Mehera was born on January 7th.
Yes.
But some people say January 6th. They don't actually have her birth certificate, or there's some issue with it where some people speculate she was born January 6th. In the Zoroastrian calendar, their birthdays are on different days every year. So the last year that Baba celebrated his birthday was December 22nd. And then so he changed it to December 22nd because it was his last year in the body with her.
Yeah.
So
it's like
that's the day that her birthday.
Thanksgiving every year is on a different date, you know. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's nice to meet you, Emmy. I don't know who you are, but nice to meet you.
And me as Anthony's wife.
Oh my God. Well, happy marriage vows. Oh my God. Whoa. I was wondering, but I wasn't sure. That's really cool.
Mhm.
Well,
No wonder you're dreaming common themes.
So it's no coincidence